The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever F.A.B, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shelly Madea MD as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
And as moms, as Black women, we don't always have that. We rarely have that.
Right. It's amazing. I'm finding myself that despite all this time and obviously suspending services at my office and not having to work in real time with people face to face, I'm finding that ironically, I seem to run out of time every day. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
It's a weird time show right now. Like I can't, some days it's fast, some days it's slow.
Exactly. Early in your book, I was deeply captivated by these words, and I did write this quote down, so I'll quote it directly. I've always been told that women are powerful, tenacious, and important, that we pull from limitless places, that we make magic wherever we go, shining light into the darkness, forming impenetrable shields with our love, that beneath moments of weakness are endless reserves of strength, end quote. It's such a beautiful passage that I've read it to myself over and over, and it resonated deeply with me. But then you progress on in the book to tell your story from childhood to adulthood of how you struggled with your own power. So tell us about your most significant life-altering struggle, one or two or a few, whatever you care to share, and how you overcame it and who helped you along the way. I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah. It feels like there are these moments recently that are coming fast at us that are life-changing. There have been deaths. My father died when I was 20 years ago. That was life-changing. I married.
That is life-changing.
Every birth, five births and one adoption, they've been life-changing. Every divorce has been life-changing. And I've learned something from all. I will say, when my son said, I am not a girl, I'm a boy, that required
a different skill set?
It required a very long pause. Quickly respond, no quick response to that. So I really had to pause, and then I had to learn a new skill set. And that's when I was breaking. I think I almost broke at that point. Talk about this Black girl magic and this Black excellence and this women's, ability to endure. And then we break. We do.
Yeah. We do.
And so it was a break that I hadn't felt before, because when your child is not right, and when the world is not right with your child, it is a devastating place to be in as a mom. So I would say that moment when I realized that my son was different from anything that I thought I knew, the learning lesson was so severe, so steep, but it changed everything. Like I don't look at anything the same after that. And I think we're going to, with COVID, I think there's going to be a lot of PTS after this moment of COVID, but I think there's going to be a lot of deep, steep learning that we will use as the lens for everything else. This feels like a really difficult time, and it is, and I'm not minimizing the deaths, but the learning lessons, we've got to hear them. They will change forever for us.
Wow. It is a really exceptional time. It
is. And it's funny. It's not funny, but funny, not funny. When people ask me a lot to talk about what it was like to understand my kid is transgender, not knowing anything about trans, right? Coming from a Black, so I didn't know that word. And they sort of they want to hear the story of how strange it was or how difficult it was. And we are now as a society in the strangest moment, something that we have never experienced before, something that we don't understand with language, something that will only reveal itself over time.
Yeah.
And so I went through with my child, obviously, raising a trans kid and experiencing a virus are two different. I'm not comparing the two, but I'm saying there are lessons to be learned in these extremes that will have to come through time. So we're going to have to give this some time.
Yeah, I agree. It is going to take some time on many levels for a number of different things, physically, medically, politically, socio-economically, spiritually. Everything is being disrupted.
Yeah, and that yes, exactly. And we have to acknowledge that the disruption for sure is happening. It has happened.
Let's talk a little bit about your family. You mentioned how you grew up. You grew up in a household that honored its legacy. And you were often reminded of your identity and encouraged to be your authentic self and to take power and have pride in that. When did you first experience, I guess, what can I call it? Maybe a crisis of identity or a crisis of authenticity? Did you ever have a moment in your life where you felt, whoa, I'm all these things I was told, I'm all this stuff, but wait a minute, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, I was laughing when you said, I was chuckling to myself when you were just, because in my house, my father raised us to be very outspoken, very independent, proud of our afros, proud of our skin, proud of our, quirks. And so we had a lot of room to be authentic, except, and this is where the humor comes in, if it interfered with him. We could never cross, we could cross any, we could, go up against any rule except for him. And so I find that in life that we tell women, be smart, but not too smart, be tall, but not taller than your man, so shrink down. Be sexy, but don't be slutty. You know, don't be, too in control of finance, but then you seem unsexy. They're always women. But so I think, I was raised with some fundamental identity strength.
Yes.
Around my Blackness, around my physicality, but now at 50, I realized there were caveats to that, and I had to break those down. And you only understand the caveats when you collide up against limitation. So everything seems great until you hit limitation. And I found those limitations with some of my husbands,
Yes.
No, not that. You can't do that, Jody.
Right.
You can do that. I found some of those limitations in business. With how people wanted to interact with me as a woman or not. So, but I still find some limitations or places where I haven't fully explored myself in my parenting.
Yeah.
It's constant. I think that if, the question is, I think you asked, like, where did I ever have an identity crisis? And I'm having them all the time. And I'm not joking. I'm constantly questioning, am I doing this parenting thing right?
Yeah.
Am this spouse thing right? I've been divorced twice. Am I this economic thing right? Because I'm not, if I can withstand 18 months of COVID. So I'm questioning, and I think the questions are great. My foundation is pretty strong. And so I'm not taking apart, but the questions around, can I do this all the time?
I would say that, yes, you can. So you touch upon self-discovery, and your book actually not only tells the story of Penelope and family, but it seems to tell more than one story, but in layers, which is really brilliant. So overall, would you agree that it is a story about discovery, not just discovery of self, but Penelope's identity, the discovery of family and that relationship? What did you discover about yourself throughout this entire process with Penelope and about family and transformation?
You're absolutely right. It was about discovery. I discovered a few things that I have been keeping inside. So one of them is I am king. And that over people, or I'm not king over any, king of this.
Yes.
Right. This body, this vagina, this womb, this brain. his heart, most king over this woman, right? And so and I was never raised, although I was raised by kings and I was raised by dominant type A people, both male and female. I was never told I could be king. I was told I was, and I discovered that I am actually king, and I was doing a disservice to my relationships, playing the backfield, playing the supporting people, because I was pissed off. Character, and I don't mean I don't collaborate. I collaborate all the time, but I am naturally someone who likes to look for more and do more and drive.
Understood.
So I'm king. I found that, but also found out that I'm a starfish, and that means that
like your spirit animal starfish, or what does that mean?
Okay, so I like to spread out in the sand or in the world and touch everything. So starfish, just like starfish don't, like girl starfish don't do differently than boy starfish, right? They're kind of without gender in many ways. And so I want to be just this woman who touches women things, or who does what moms do, or acts like a 50-year-old responsible woman. I want to be able to do things in this life that make me happy.
Yes,
and
agreed.
But like, you know, what does a 50-year-old woman look like anyway? I don't even freaking know at this point, right?
I mean, I can give you numerous examples, right? All over the place.
Starfishing is about freedom. So I tell my kids, you're a starfish. It's freedom. It's experiencing the world, every kernel, every sand in this life, so that you can leave this life fulfilled. Because in the end, that's what it is, right? We want to have experienced and traversed life.
Yes, purposeful. Yeah. I like that. Hashtag starfish freedom. It's going in.
Yeah.
Now, I've asked my friends and other podcast guests this question, particularly about what we're all facing now, the global pandemic. So how are you managing? How are you trying to flourish, you and your family, your blended family, the husband, the ex-husbands, how can you share with us some of the ways that you are not only keeping it together, but keeping everyone together and just staying safe, healthy, and well and fabulous?
We are definitely strict in our social distancing. Yeah. First and foremost, made up very strong rules, and we all agree to them, especially in my house, but also in the shared germ pool of the ex-husband's house. We kind of, because the kids essentially will go back and forth eventually.
Yes.
So we have to kind of larger germ pool, think about how to be physically safe. And so that was the first thing, like, let's lock down some rules and guidelines on how to keep the family safe. Yes. And then once that, some of the sort of more nuanced areas of coping and rebounding from this, everyone gets a space in the house where they can close the door. Privacy has been, like, our boundaries have been infringed upon in so many ways, but I know I need a door to close.
Yeah.
So everyone gets a space where they can close the door. Mine, because I have so many people, mine has turned out to be the bathroom. I took the bathroom, but so doors have to close, and you have to be okay with that. I also have been less structured with the day. So where I used to structure it, hour by hour, now I have three anchors a day. We wake up at 8:30.
Yes.
We eat dinner at 7:30.
Yes.
We go to sleep at 11:30.
Okay.
And I'm talking about with my kids too. And then everyone fills in around those anchors the rhythm as they choose.
Yeah.
Understanding is you've got to get your work, your education, your exercise in.
Yeah.
But you choose where those go and how to flow the day. As long as you have your three anchors: rise at 8:30, dinner at 7, and bedtime by 11:30. So far, it's been working. People have done their schoolwork.
Yes.
Mom done her, exercises and her work.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's different from me. Not having complete control over the day feels weird and wonky.
Yes.
But if I look at it, the kids are doing all right with this.
I'm glad. I have to admit that for me, not having a schedule has been quite an adjustment for me. I usually, wake up early, I go to the office, I see my patients, or I wake up even earlier, I go to the operating room, do my operations, then I go back to the office and do my notes, and not having that, the first few weeks, I will be honest, I didn't know what to do with myself. And then finally I just said, okay, Shirley, snap out of it, all understanding that this is probably in part, a grief reaction, but get back on something. So I created a mini schedule, anchors, as you mentioned, when, wake up, have breakfast, exercise, da, da, da. So having some structure and filling it in and letting that flow, I think is important. So I like that strategy. Now, just the final few questions about some of the people who have influenced you. Who would you say has had the most impact on shaping you and your success?
Wow.
I know.
Tough.
I know.
I'm gonna push back on that and say, and this is something I do a lot. I amalgamate, like I combine.
Yes, that's
so
fine.
Yeah, I found men that I really admire. I found women in my family that I draw from.
Yes.
Authors. So I've been studying Baldwin. I've been studying Toni Morrison.
Yes.
I studied Dr. Gloria Blackwell, my father, my mother, and I have their pictures up and I have their books around. And I look at them sometimes daily. And those are like when I want to be grown and independent, I think about how Beth Ann Hardison is doing her life.
Oh yes.
I want to be young and a little bit ballsy. I think about Kilo Kish, who's this great singer, a friend of mine. And I have a list of people. If I want to be sort of faith driven, I have my faith, crew. And if I want to be economically healthy and think about my economics, I have some people I pull from. So I can't give you one, but what I do say is you have to ID your tribe.
Absolutely.
And then when you've ID'd them, you can't skip that. You've got to go back to them. So this person for one thing, this person for another, and then amalgamate and you embody all of those people.
Yes, you do a wonderful job, a very gracious job in your book of acknowledging all of those people. It was actually beautiful to read. So, and it's beautiful to understand that we can have maybe it's a beautiful spirit of collaboration.
I would say one thing, you made me think about just there's some fundamental folks in my life that make me my foundation. So I would say my mom, and I don't want to go back and sound like I'm, sort of adding in some sentiment, but when I think how I think, which is, I think organically, I think faith, I think bird's eye view over the family. My mom had that same skill. And I think a lot of women, a lot of our mothers and our mothers' mothers and their mothers.
Yes.
It's ability to have a bird's eye view of situation. Yes. Not just get in the heat of it, but to take a bird's eye view and then to come up with a strategy. And we call that Black girl magic. We call that Black excellence. We call that like a woman, but it's not magic. There are these women, my mother and her mother, who had strategies to build families and building up communities. And so I want to say that with this amalgamation of inspiration that my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, my great grandmother, those foundational elements are, I don't want to overlook.
Yes. Well, these questions are meant to be thought provoking because I put a lot of thought into them. So I'm happy you added. So for a little bit of levity, what are some of your favorite ways to celebrate life and those people who inspire you? How do you do that?
Oh, celebrate life. Okay. So I'm an introvert a lot of times. I like fun by myself or quietly with others. And so running right now.
Yes. I remember you telling me about that. Yes.
It's a joy ritual for me. So I run a lot and I run to Drake. I listen to Drake and I run. And that makes me feel
left foot slide, right foot slide.
I don't know what it is. This music it just gets me going. So, okay, running is a joy ritual. Cooking has become a joy ritual. So in my house, we rotate days for cooking, even the kids, and we do new recipes.
Nice.
I really enjoy, and I've done this for years, my time in my bathroom. So washing my face, moisturizing, doing peels.
Oh, I love
it. I don't know. I think what it does is it changes the moment. Like you walk into the bathroom, shitty, I do a scrub and I change the moment. It's less about vanity and more about like just changing the moment. And then I would say, I don't know, everything is like different these days, but another thing I've been doing is we have mandatory laugh sessions.
I love that.
And it's like this weird thing where if you've talked to other survivors of crises, they say you have to have joy. You have to be intentional. Right. So what we've been doing, we either do like a lively game of Uno or an hour of riddles and a board game where people are cheating and we're laughing, I don't know. It's just every day by the end of the day, we have intentionally had a laugh session. And that's been a substantial ritual of joy.
I'm going to borrow that for sure. Now, you mentioned your bathroom rituals, and I have to ask a little bit more about that since we also share the beauty thing. So what are your top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, top products in your beauty cabinet?
So recently I've been using Kat Berkey. It's a vegan line. So I came out of, and this is like a long story, but I'll shorten it. I came out of the hospital with COVID, and I was already healthy before, but from that experience, I deepened my commitment to being really healthy. And so I'm 80% vegan. I take in, but the products I'm using, I'm really trying to use the product. So Kat Berkey has a cleanser. She has an eye cream. She has oil, all of these products that smell really great. So there's aromatherapy, but have a quick response because I'm impatient when it comes to my skin. And they're healthy. So Kat Berkey, I would say, is my brand that I've been using a lot recently. And then I also have my own brand called Georgia.
Yes.
I'm not even promoting it because I don't have the time to sell it these days. But I have to say, again, it's a brand that has 0 chemicals.
Yes. Which is hard to achieve. So kudos.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
Okay. So of those top products in your beauty cabinet, what is the one that you absolutely cannot do without? Like if you were going someplace and you just only had time to do one thing, what would it be?
Oil. I can live. Yeah. So I will moisturize with it on my face. I will use it for my cuticles. I'll use it on my scalp. Yeah. I'll use it in the middle of the day just to make me feel like I'm glowing. I cannot pack a suitcase without packing oil. Yeah. I can't bathroom without reaching for face oil. Yeah. So there are like 10 other steps that I like, that I enjoy, but if I had to narrow down to one, face oil.
I actually agree with you on that. A really good refined face oil is my go-to morning, noon, night, every day. Last couple of questions. Now talk to me about, you already live an exciting life on many levels, but you also have some even more exciting projects coming up in the future. So tell me about some of those endeavors and what are you most excited about? I know there are too many to name, but tell me what you can.
Things that I'm excited about, my book, The Bold World, is in the works for a television series.
Yes.
And that's phenomenal because we would look at a Black family, we'll look at a Black woman as lead character, that a very diverse blended family with divorce and adoption and multiple genders, multiple identities as the norm. So I like that. So that idea of like book to television is something that's happening.
That's fabulous.
I have a children's book coming out called
Jody.
Yeah. So my first book was my perspective, and my children's book is Penelope's perspective of what it was like to have to express himself and have his entire community one by one understand and support.
Incredible.
So Born Ready, a true story of a boy named Penelope, comes out in this year. I'm working on a third book around radical parenting.
Wow.
Which I'm really enjoying. And my house. Okay, my big project right now is my house is leaking. My roof. So that is about how to become a roof welder.
Yeah. Less aspirational, but still pretty fabulous. You can do it all. So exciting. I hope you'll come back when the book's published and the TV series comes out. That would be amazing if you put us on your press junket.
You got it.
Thank you. Okay, last 2 questions. If you could create one magnificent thing, either a product or a philosophy, what would that be?
Ooh. If I could create a philosophy, I'm going to say, okay, philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have this thing that I call the lab in our house.
Yes.
The philosophy that I would love to have created, but I would love for people to embrace it, is lab it out. Lab it out.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
It's when we don't agree on, there's a topic that is, big and robust and polarizing, like seat in the car.
Okay.
Or religion or gender. Big shit that
politics,
people don't agree.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to argue the point, which most people do, and we did, we lab it out in my family. So we sit down on the floor in a circle, usually, to like level the playing field, and everyone gets a chance to speak. Everyone can speak as long as they want, one person at a time, no interrupt. Whoever has the proverbial microphone gets to talk. Yes. And the rule is you have to share your truth. And it's forth, right? So one person, I'll give you an example. So Penelope and all of my children, Penelope, Cassius, Othello, Georgia, 9, we're all sitting down. And Cassius, who's the scientist, he'll say, look, I respect my brother. I'll always use the right pronoun. But scientifically speaking, Penelope's a girl. I don't believe that he'll say, I don't believe transgender scientifically exists. I don't believe that it's a thing. I think it's something that people have just made up a term. But scientifically, Penelope is a girl.
Wow.
This is a big, yes, exactly. This is a big opinion. This is a big truth for him.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to hear because I know his science is inaccurate. There's science gender variance, but he's 14. That's his perspective. And so Penelope, and many of us have a different perspective. So Penelope waits for his turn, and then Penelope speaks, and Penelope says, look, it's not an opinion. I am here. I exist. Therefore, I'm all the proof needed.
Yes.
Transgender identity exists because I exist. And this is how God has made me. Period. Yes. And Cassius comes back with the microphone. He says, wait a minute, you believe in God?
Oh
God
my gosh.
And so we go around and around and around and around, and we talk. And I'm talking 7 people. So we talk sometimes for an hour or 2 on this topic. And in the end, they go, oh my God, are you guys bored? Let's go play basketball.
Oh, yes.
Talked it out. So labbing it out means taking big polarizing topics and discussing them, not debating, but discussing with decorum, with no goal. The goal is not to agree.
Right.
Penelope and Cassius still don't agree. It's been like 8 years.
But it's still respectful.
To discuss and disagree with decorum. So that's what labbing it out. That's a philosophy that I would love to have picked up by, companies, boardrooms, other moms, labbing it out.
I'm going to pick up labbing it out and try it out in marriage.
Oh, yeah. It's a little hard, but it's because you can lab it out in the nude.
Right. That's true. That makes it fun.
Or and talk about big topics that might be really stressful in the
That's
nude.
right. That's right. I like that. Okay, my very last question for you, my beautiful friend. What are your top 5 recommendations for living a beautiful life? I call these the F.A.B. 5. What are your top 5 recommendations for living authentically, beautifully, fabulously? And I'll write these down.
I would say untether yourself.
Have you read that book, Untethered Soul?
I have it right next to my bed.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so untether yourself.
And that means cut some of the strings or detach some of the strings. Not forever, because, oftentimes we're tethered to our children. Those are good things, tethered to our spouse. But for a woman who really wants to experience freedom and beauty and a genuine lightness, we have to learn to untether for 5 minutes. Today, close that door. Ask for one. Don't be attached to anything. Just 5 minutes. And I don't mean that recklessly. Just we have to untether 5 minutes. So that's beauty number 1, to be able to untether. As a woman in particular, it's so radical, right?
Yes.
And I would say choose stillness.
Okay, number 2, choose stillness.
Right. Then I have to be still some part of the day, and that's difficult for me. You have to you have to move your body. So in the opposite of stillness, at some point during the day, you have to get up. You cannot stay in bed. I want to stay in bed today, but we got to get up, get back up and move. And that could exercise, that could be jumping rope, that could be dancing, but we have to get back up.
Agreed. What's your number 4?
How many do I get all together?
Total of 5. You're now on number 4.
Number 4 is make love.
Yes.
And that could be, in all ways. It could be platonic ways of making love, producing love, creating love.
Yes.
It can be sexual ways, but we have to make love.
Yeah.
And 5th, the last one. Okay. Oh gosh. Create something.
Yay.
Create something, whether it's a story or
joy or laughter.
Yeah, create something. That means I guess that ties into imagination. The last one is to create something. Use your imagination.
Yes.
Create something.
Like that.
Well, it could be something like an idea. It could also be creating a future.
Yeah. Jody. This has been amazing. Oh my God.
Let me tell you, I don't know if you can see, I'm in my bedroom.
It's beautiful.
My bedroom, it's no joke. I don't have an office anymore. I have to give it up to someone else in my house.
Well, it looks very peaceful, and it looks like if that's the kind of place where you close your door, it's a happy place to be.
For sure. I cannot wait to see the person and hug you.
I know. A big hug is beyond overdue. I can't believe the last time it was that I saw you, and obviously no one had any idea what was going to happen, but I'm so grateful that you are here today, even more grateful that you got through the madness and you are back to complete health and wellness. My goodness.
Thank you. It was, as all of us, we are pushed in ways that we never thought we'd be pushed. And we will, rebounding it's a skill. And so that's why these conversations you're doing are so important, so we can learn lessons from each other.
I do believe that. And it's one of the ways that I collaborate. So I would love to hear your ideas offline about who else we can come get to do this podcast. But in the meantime, thank you for showing up, for being here, and for honoring us with your time, your energy, and your insight.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you, and we will talk soon.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone. You've been listening to my interview with Jody Patterson called Transition, Transformation, and Transcendence: How Transgender Activism May Teach Us to Evolve and Let Go. Thank you once again, Jody. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye. So to continue this fascinating story, please buy Jody's book, The Bold World, and it's available on Amazon.com. And for holistic beauty tips or to set up an appointment with me to discuss your beauty transformation, please visit my website at elementsandgraces.com. And yet another step, if you are looking for an online e-consultation anytime on your time, visit clicklift.com for your wellness, plastic surgery, and beauty questions on the go. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And you can post videos, you can post photos, and if you choose, we can also arrange to do a online sort of in real time consultation via video. But other than that, if you just want to click away, punch in your answers, fill out a brief questionnaire, ask and you shall receive. And if you visit clicklift.com, then I'll be there for you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Forever Fab podcast. Until next time, stay beautiful inside and out, and stay healthy, hopeful, and well. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shelly Madea MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.